is what it should be, that people are taken care of, just like village love is what I call it, right? We have a responsibility to the village, whether we own it or not, um, whether we take it seriously or not. We all have a part to do in making certain that the village thrives. And the conversation was centered around decorum, like in public. His conversation specifically was germane to the second line culture, Super Sunday culture, how women are presenting out there in full view of children and elderly, and he was just making this stands to say, will we have a code of conduct for ourselves when we are enjoying or exemplifying or being exemplars of the culture? And so everything that is labeled culture, we have to be mindful of what we label as culture. Yeah, New Orleans culture is exquisite. It's not like anything you'll find anywhere else. We love her. We love New Orleans, right? And so the conversation he was having made me listen. Like, I was scrolling and I saw it, I stopped and I listened because it intrigued me. Because I've always been of the mindset that if you got it, you got it. And some people say if you got it, flaunt it. You remember hearing that, right? But even if you flaunt it, it don't have to be unpackaged, unclothed. I can tell you right now, when I was coaching, and I coach high school girls for a number of years, and when I was coaching, when the conversation about decorum always came up, because it was just something I made certain to do, because how you carry yourself becomes a part of your image. It becomes a part of your brand. It becomes a part of how people see you, right? So I always talk to them about it, and I use a very simple analogy all the time. And if you know any of my athletes or any females that have ever been under my charge, they will tell you this, right? I always likened it to Subway and Quiznos. When you go to Subway, right? The cookies are out on display. If you open up the slot, the person that's retrieving your cookies, they breathing on them, they can see them. Everybody can see the cookies. But if you go in Quiznos, all of the cookies are individually wrapped. And so I asked them, I'm like, if you had a choice to purchase something that you feel like everybody has had access to, they're breathing on it, they can see it, or would you rather purchase something that is individually wrapped in only your hands, your breath, your energy has ever been on it, right? It's individually wrapped. That means when you open it up, it's yours. Nobody is just yours. And that was the analogy I always use. And so my thing is this: to each their own, right? You do what you think is best for you. But part of having a village mentality is understanding that when people constructively criticize something, or they're asking for accountability of something, or they're asking for correction of something, that is because they love you. That is what we're supposed to be able to do. But the problem is, far too many of us don't want nobody telling them nothing. You don't want to hear it, except for when you need them. And then as soon as you need somebody, then everybody get to have an opinion. Everybody gets to have buy-in. Everybody gets to talk about it because you need something from the village. But I'm asking that we listen to what the young man had to say, because again, I believe when black men talk and they're talking with an air and energy of love, we should listen, because the conversation or the connectivity between black women and black men has to change. It has to get better overall. And I'm not saying that our relationships are not good. I'm saying the conversation around them. We allow people to create this narrative that black men don't know how to address black women, and black women don't know how to respect or listen to or follow or understand or be empathetic about the perils of black men. And I know that's a fallacy. But we allow that narrative to be driven in such that it shows up in other ways, right? It shows up in our music. It shows up in music videos. It shows up in a way we speak to each other. Because the moment we say something the other person doesn't like, then we're all kind of explicatives, right? It's all sorts of things being said about us. But I will go out on a limb and say there's no person that protects the black man like the black woman. That's my belief. And I will go out on a limb and say there's no person that protects the black woman like the black man. And so when we start to hear narratives like that and we don't check them, we allow them to manifest themselves into other forms and other ways. So to me, that's a young black man. So I don't know how old he is, but he looks pretty young to me. And he was talking with such love about wanting better for the community. I think we need to We need to listen, right? Because knowledge comes from all different angles. And so, in addition to that part of the conversation, I ran across an older black man. And it was on Rubonomics, REBLNOMICS, Rubonomics. And he said he believes the first sellout in the hood, the neighborhood, right? We say hood for short, in the neighborhood, is the drug dealer. He said, because I'm trying to feed my family is not an answer for you being able to kill my family. Because you know, a lot of the times when folk give you a rationale for why they sell drugs, why they partake in that activity is because they're trying to put food on the table, they're trying to make ends meet, they're trying to make a way, they're trying to feed their family. So his argument is, well, simply because you're trying to feed yours doesn't mean that you get to feed poison to mine, right? And that conversation caught my attention, as did the young man who was talking about the decorum and etiquette in our culture. It caught my attention because lived experiences will always dictate how you react to something. Everybody who knows me knows that my mother was once addicted to drugs. My mother is 30 plus years clean and sober, but it's still a part of her story. It's a part of my story. I vividly remember instances where her addiction affected my life. I remember it. It's burned into my brain. So when he said that, I in my mind was thinking, how could people who came up in the same neighborhood as me, right? Whose grandmothers I know, whose mothers I know, who knows my mother, how could you sell her poison and you know, first of all, she has children? Because you know us. Y'all live down the porch from us. Y'all live on the other court from us. Like, I see you all the time. And it made me think about that, because when you're young and you don't really understand the landscape of things, you don't question them in the same way you would as an adult. So as an adult, when I read that, I was like, yeah, okay, let's hear about this. So according to this young man, oh, he's an older man, he's older than me. He said the first sellout in the neighborhood is the drug dealer. And so, you know, I'm always talking about systems, right? That's why that conversation sparked my attention, because Ashanta, I tend to focus on systems, because even though I was young, not understanding the landscape of things, as an adult, hearing that, I can understand that. But I also, in my adulthood, understand that systems often dictate circumstances. And though I may not want to sell poison to your family to be able to feed mine, you know, what happens when the choice is there, the immediate gratification of what I'm looking for is there, when I've tried my best to do it this way, or I'm forced to do it that way because of the circumstances that I'm coming up in. And I mean, I'm talking about, because I don't control what I'm being made to do to make ends meet, right? I've met children in this city as a principal who are doing things to put food on the table for a mother who has a man living in the house, but it's incumbent upon the seventh grader to go out and figure out how to bring some money back for their siblings. I've met parents like that, and they see nothing wrong with it, because that's the environment that raised them, and that's what they know. And so we have to really have a deep conversation about this village mentality, this village love, this village responsibility that we have to and for each other. And I don't think that things will ever heal themselves unless we start to have those sorts of internal conversations, and we can be honest without folk being offended. And we can be corrected without folk being offended, right? And to me, I think it's worth talking about. Because I mean, who else is going to fix it but us? Right. And so to me, I am a staunch advocate for trying to examine systems and try to raise awareness of how systems work, as opposed to blaming folk for trying to thrive or survive in a broken, dilapidated system. And so for me, I think that's important to talk about. It's really important to talk about. And, you know, whether we own the responsibility of other people's care, it's ours. Because I try to highlight this all the time. You can do your very best with your family. You can raise your child the very best that you know how. Your child could never be in trouble. You could never get arrested. You could do all of the things that society says are the check boxes to have a productive life. But all of those children who are being disserviced, who don't have the ability or the know-how to check a box or a structure in terms of a family to show them better, they're out there in the same city that your child is in. They're in the same city that you are in, and you check every box. You've done it the right way. You don't even have a parking ticket, right? You think I've checked the box. I've lived well. I don't harm anybody. I've educated myself. Why should I care what somebody else is doing who had the same opportunities and they just decided to do whatever they wanted to do with their opportunity? Well, I can tell you this. You can have that attitude that it's only about me and my house, my child, my home, my community, my street, my block. You can have that attitude if you so please. But all of the folk, the children, the community, the parents who feel ostracized, who feel shut out, who feel um, pushed aside, they're also out there with you. And they're also trying to figure out how to survive. And self-preservation will dictate that people may start to do things that are not characteristic of them so that they can survive. And so to me, this is a larger conversation about systems, but I do believe that there should be a basic etiquette, decorum, conduct that we have that dictates how we treat each other, how we speak to each other, how we help each other, right? I don't know why it is that when news happens and black folk read about black folk committing crimes, black folk don't ever give black folk the benefit of the doubt. You just believe what you read because you see the faces black, you read the details, as if you don't know that all stories are not even vetted when they're put out. As if you don't know that people are presumed innocent until they're proven to be guilty. At least that's the way the system is supposed to work. Because what I could tell you is when things happen in other communities, right? And with a preponderance of evidence against that person, I see GoFundMe's popping up. I see, all of this, oh, he was such a good boy. All of these excuses being made or reasons being put out there as to why this behavior happened. But we don't oftentimes give each other that benefit. We're the first people to pile on. But if we had a code of conduct, if we had etiquette, if we had decorum about village mentality and village love, we could assume the best in each other until it's proven that we can no longer believe that one thing, and still and still ask for accountability in the vein of love, right? Because if you do something wrong, of course we want you to be able to atone for the thing that you've done wrong. But we too often throw away our own people without any evidence. All we need is some social media page to say it, and all we need is a whole bunch of people sharing it, and we just instantly believe it. We don't vet it, we don't research it, we don't even Google it, and it's free, right? We don't even go that far. We just wanna put it out there, put it out there, put it out there, because a lot of the times we just want to be first. No matter how misinformed we are, we just want to be first. We want to be able to have our clicks and views go up, go up, go at the expense of other people who look just like us. You know, and then we allow narratives to be perpetrated that black folk don't hold black folk accountable when black on black violence happens. I don't even engage in those kind of conversations. But what I will say is that's the narrative that is out there, because more often than not, we don't push back against it. We let it thrive. And then it often comes out of the mouth of other black people, as if you don't know that you commit that crime, you absolutely getting arrested. You're absolutely being incarcerated at a rate that outpaces any other race when we talk about violent crime. The incarceration numbers tell us that we go to jail at rates that outpace other races, right? So when you hear these fallacies, you got to start correcting them. Yeah, there's a whole lot of black people who love on a whole lot of black people, but love also looks like accountability. We hold each other accountable. We should, but we should do it in a way that helps us grow. That helps us not be afraid to ask for help when we get in trouble, to not be afraid to ask for help when we need it, so that we don't revert to doing the wrong things for what we consider to be the right reasons. Because do the ends justify the means is the question, right? Is the drug dealer the first sellout in the neighborhood? Should we have a decorum etiquette about ourselves when we're in public spaces, communing with each other? Should that be the standard? Should that be the standard? Somebody texted me yesterday when we were having this conversation, and they were like, a lot of our women have a stripper mentality. And look, shout out to strippers. I don't, pretend to judge anybody for what they decide to do for a living. So that was the mentality that they said they had in public, right? But what I will say is that if we know that, or if we have some sort of standard about ourselves, and it's an internal standard, right? It's a known standard without having to say it's a standard. Then when our girls get up to start putting clothes on to go outside, they're going to think about the clothing options. When our men decide to get dressed to go outside, they're going to think about belt options. Because we don't want to see your underwear either, sir. You know what I mean? So, should there be a standard? I believe so. If you believe so, call us. Let's hear what you have to say, 504-582-9422. But that was the conversation I ran across last night, and I wanted to share it with you. But we have to go to break, pay a couple bills. But when we come back, we're going to talk about all things state of the city, state of the state, state of this country right here, WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
Hey everybody, it's Graylin Bryant Banks.
And Kimber White Dupree.
From the front porch, y'all. You know how we do. Every Monday is Moving Monday.
And Tuesday is Trivia Tuesday.
And y'all know we have nothing but bad cheering coming through here on Wednesday.
But stick with us. On Thursday, we travel.
That's right. And Friday's Free Your Mind Friday, so get your brass up.
Something on your mind? Want to get it off your chest?
Holla at your people. WBOK 1230 AM, the station you listen to
all day long.
NOLA Public Schools is excited for the rest of this 24-25 school year journey with our families, watching our students dive into learning, growth, and success. As the school year continues, our dedicated educators are focused on keeping every student engaged and motivated. Let's keep embracing new challenges, celebrating achievements, and supporting each other to make the rest of this year even more impactful. Stay connected with your school and NOLA PS through our social media channels for updates and resources. We're here to help our scholars attend today, achieve tomorrow.
Welcome to The Community Scientist. I'm excited to bring you our quarterly review of the latest research. If you live or work in St. James, St. John's, St. Charles, Ascension, Calcasieu, Baton Rouge, or St. Bernard parishes, it's vital that you have access to clear, objective information about lead, hexavalent chromium, and cadmium, and how these substances impact your health and our natural environment. The Community Scientist is a service program of Rise St. James, supported by our dedicated TCS research team. To learn more, visit risestjames.org.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 AM.
Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. If you're just joining us, we were in conversation about this code of conduct, this etiquette, this decorum that we should have, particularly germane to our girls and young women who are out engaging in community at our second lines, at our parades and things of that nature. And then there was a guy who had another perspective about the first sellout in the neighborhood is the drug dealer, because wanting to feed your family is not an excuse for feeding poison to my family. So that was a conversation. But it kind of goes so well with our next guest. We in the studio with Rashawn Carrier, Executive Director of Boys Town, Louisiana. And we're on the topic of young girls, their development, their confidence, their body image. And who better to help us talk about that? So what is your take on that? The young man was saying, how it's we have to get back to making certain that there's some sort of baseline, right, for how we present publicly, especially for our young girls and our young women, because I believe our young girls are taking our cues from our women as to how to present. What is your take on that?
It's a complicated topic because
It
I'm
is.
old
It's
school.
layered.
Yes, very layered.
Yeah, it's layered.
I was raised by my mom and grandmother.
Yeah.
And they instilled in me, to be appropriately dressed.
Yeah.
Right. And so that kind of clouds a little bit about the conversation, because there is another point, like, you're free to express yourself.
Right.
At the same time.
But then you'll have folk saying, well, what is considered appropriate? Right. So
Right.
that's the conversation. Like, what's considered appropriate? Because, again, I'm always, if you have it, you have it. If you're beautiful, if you your body is what it is, whether the surgeon built you or the gym built you, if that's your body and you're proud of it, you do what you feel is necessary. But should there be just a baseline code of conduct in terms of how we present publicly, especially when we're being communal amongst children who are impressionable and our elders who we should show some
Respect.
sign of respect for? I guess that's the conversation.
And I'm a
right?
mother. I have a daughter. And
Yeah.
so sometimes my daughter will run down those stairs and like, what are you wearing? So you got to teach them. It starts at home. But everybody has a different standard and judgment as far as what is appropriate within their own home. But children are impressionable. And so that is why I'm here kind of to talk about that, about just at least being cognizant that kids are taking their cues from you.
So I guess the question is, how can parents and guardians help their young girls develop a positive self-image?
It's difficult. Most people don't know. I mean, they just go by our name, that is Boys Town, right?
Yes.
But we actually do serve girls
Yes.
in our homes. Girls ages 12 to 17. And that demographic is tough. I really feel like it's forgotten about, with a lot of the mentoring programs focused on young men and young boys, that we have a population of girls who need the same amount, if not more, guidance and support. And so when it comes to body image and being a woman myself, growing up as a young girl, raising a daughter, it is like really, really something that you have to continue to talk about in your home and open up that conversation, because girls are seeing images. When I was growing up, it was the magazines. Like, I would go through Ebony
Jet.
and Essence and
Yes.
the Jet Beauty
Jet.
of the week.
Yes.
And I'm like, I can't compete. There's
Right.
nothing about, I was really small, really thin. But now with social media, the images are there, and the BBLs and that body image, and how to instill in your young girl that you're still growing and developing. Don't mess with that right now, right? Be active. Join organizations, get involved in arts and crafts, and develop other things about your self-esteem to be proud of other than your body, because that body's going to do whatever it's going to do while it's growing. Just make sure that you're feeding it and staying healthy.
But how important too is it to make certain that our girls know that their mind, the way you think? Because on the show yesterday, I said, oh, the body might attract them, but the mind gonna help them stay there, right? Because
Right.
to me, this is just my personal opinion. I don't have girls. I have one boy. But I raised my son to be respectful of women. Not just the woman that you like, that you're interested in women, right? If you're walking in and there's a door to be opened and held, you open it and you hold it for women, not just, the girl you're dating. These are just regular little everyday things. I taught him little coming up. So as a young man now, he's just innately doing it because it's just,
awesome.
he held the door for me.
Right.
So this is what you want to do. So, and just talking about this idea of making certain that you can think, because as a young girl, as a young woman, if you could think, then you know how to discern between if the boy is saying it because he like you, or if the boy is saying it because he's trying to, go to whatever level that he needs to go to without even liking you first, or without caring about your overall being and your person. And you spoke about these images on social media. and they're just so instant. Everything is there. You can find any and everything on the computer
Online,
now,
yeah.
which is so dangerous in terms of self-image for girls. Because just as you said, I know they're comparing themselves to what they see, and half the time, do our girls know that's not even real?
Right. Even the picture may not be real.
They have some editing software, baby. That, you can look like a whole different person. What they call it, catfishing. The boys say,
catfishing.
you don't look like your picture. So how hard is the work you're doing at Boys Town when you're competing with social media, when you're talking about how to build self-image in girls, a positive self-image in girls? How hard is that work made complicated by social media and the fast-paced nature of social media?
It's extremely complicated. And that's why, when you're talking about fostering other things, keeping our kids busy, like that's something that we always do with my own daughter, allowing them to experiment and try different things. Like my daughter is playing softball right now, which I think is a wonderful thing because she does not like softball. She is not the most athletic person.
She's coming out of her box. She's trying new things.
But this is her third year playing softball. So I just asked her, I'm like, Aubrey, why are you playing softball? Because it's fun, Mom. It's like she's not even thinking that I need to win. It's not even that. It's the fact that she's social, getting out and trying something new. And she hit a home run the other day.
But to me, as a coach, that's the most important. That's how it starts.
Yes.
You have to love it. You have to like it. You have to have fun with it. The competitive stuff starts later. But when you first start playing, I can remember when my son started running. He was 5 years old. I'm a competitor. But it was just so cute to watch the little 5-year-old. Someone didn't even know what a finish line was. They were running to their parents. It is so fun to see, and so that's a good thing about.
In 3 years playing softball, has never won a game.
It's
never won, but she's having fun.
And that goes back to self-confidence, right? You're talking about, like, what are some practices that girls can do to build their self-confidence? I think joining sports for fun starts to do that for girls, with boys as well. But what do you think about that in terms of self-confidence?
Again, that experimentation, finding what they like. Because I wasn't an athletic person. I wasn't competitive. I'm not coordinated, but I love to dance. And so just doing other things, finding out what you like and what you don't like, arts and crafts, journaling, like all of those ways they can find out more about themselves and what they like and learn about themselves and start to love aspects of themselves outside of that body image as well. One thing that I actually just recently been watching is, have you been watching Meghan Markle's show on Netflix?
Yes, let's talk about it.
Goodness.
Let's talk about it.
I mean, I was kind of like, I don't know about this. She's a princess, but the fact that she's just finding what she enjoys, and I'm enjoying watching her. I made her pasta the other day, and I'm like, I had to put my spices in, and I had to put my garlic powder, my onion powder, but I'm like, this is good. But I just think that's just like a small little snippet of what it's like to just try to discover aspects of yourself and what you enjoy.
But
finding joy.
I also believe you bringing that up opens up a whole different conversation, right? Because a lot of the times folk don't align Black women with self-care, right?
Self-care,
and self-care, and the ability that you could be pampered and you can be so well taken care of that you can explore the things you like to do or enjoy to do. A lot of Black women are so busy trying to work and make the family work, put the food on the table. You don't have an opportunity for self-care. You don't have an opportunity to explore the things like making a pasta and figuring out if you can cook or following a recipe. I love to see it. And I know there's a whole lot of folk mad about the fact that this woman can just do what she wants because she has a lifestyle set up for her where she doesn't have to worry about the bills or about the everyday things that everyday folk have to worry about. And this idea of all women deserve that in my opinion. And all women deserve to live in some softness.
Right.
To discover what they like.
And I see both ends of the spectrum, right? We work with the girls, the young girls.
Yes.
I'm proud of that work. But we also work with young mothers.
Yeah.
In our family-based programs, in our early Head Start program. And you're right, like, how can they carve out something for them? Because that impacts the children.
Yeah, because now you're responsible for somebody. In our community, I know me as I was coming up, they teach you that it's no longer about you when you have a baby. But we can't forget about ourselves because the way we can be best for our children is to be the best version of ourselves. But I grew up like that. When you have a baby, you're not getting no birthday gift no more. The gift gonna go to the baby. That's just how it is. If you have one baby, you're gonna get the baby shower, but you're going to have another one.
No more baby shower.
That's just how and so talking about that. And you keep mentioning like the things you offer at Boys Town. Let's talk about that for people who've never heard about the work that you're doing at Boys Town that also services girls. What are some of those programs that help build that confidence in your youth over there at Boys Town?
Yeah, so we actually have a family home program where we're working with our kids who are in state's custody, and they come in our homes and they live there. We have a family-like environment for them. We have a married couple that
So
lives
they're
in the home.
residents.
They're residents. They live with us. They're our family, and the staff that we hired are their parents or guardians. Take care of them. They go to school. They participate in activities, and they just have a childhood, a girlhood in our program. We also have an emergency shelter. Now that right now services just boys, but it's been a girl shelter in the past. It just depends on the population. Where these are kids that are in the program temporarily, have to be removed from a crisis situation. But similarly, we create that family style environment. And a lot of times the kids can go back home or they may go into our residential program.
So you see there's a couple that's there acting as like dorm parents type of
Yes, we call
fields
them
of-
family teachers.
Family
And
teachers.
they are people who are just 100%. Their job is to take care of our kids in our home. And what that looks like is bringing them to school in the morning, picking them up, going to parent-teacher conferences,
Oh, wow.
making sure that they're enrolled in extracurricular activities, going to those activities,
So
and
they
helping
still
them through
have
life.
regular everyday lives as if they were in the home with their own parents. They're just in the facility at
Yes,
Boys Town under
absolutely.
the guidance of this particular so they go to the events for them. They go to just
Parent-teacher
that's
conferences.
amazing.
everything. Yeah.
It's and so they service that one family is in charge of all of the
Six
the-
kids.
Six kids.
in the home.
Okay, okay. And do you have and is that a mix? Is that boys and girls? Is that just
No.
No, I
we,
mean,
we
do-
have
it's-
mixed before, but yeah, boy, and that cause issues. But we
Okay.
do have 2 boys' homes and 1 girl home right
That's
now.
what I mean. It services boys and girls. I know I think
Okay.
that will want to be separate. We don't
Right, exactly.
we don't need those sorts of issues.
After Katrina, we did try to bring them together, and that
Yeah.
did not work.
So does the male in that couple they govern the guys and then the female in the couple governs the
No,
girls? Is that
they-
how it
they
goes?
work as a couple.
So they they merge together.
Yes,
okay,
they work
cool.
as a couple.
I mean that's good to know because again, every time you come here, I learn something new about what Boys Town offers because I always thought about it as like the space where folk can go like to do after school programming and things of that nature. But this is like full time.
Yes, it's
all
full-time.
day,
Oh, let me
24/7.
let me correct you too. We
Okay.
have it's a couple. It could be a same-sex couple. Or
Okay.
it can be a traditional couple.
Okay.
So sometimes we have 2 females, which right now we do, in the home, a
Okay.
married couple. Yep.
Okay, talk about
Yes.
diversity.
Yes, absolutely.
Equity and inclusion. Let's talk about it. And so we also want to talk about this idea of promoting balanced eating. So do you also have like nutritional, I guess, folk to come in? Like we always have people coming in from our health partners. We had one on yesterday just talking about how to eat well. And one of the tips was put your fork down in between bites. You know,
Yes.
and just and I actually did that yesterday as I was eating because I realized I do hold the fork when I'm eating. I'm like,
Yes.
why am I holding the fork?
Take a break. Yes.
Right.
Allow
So
you
what
to
are-
digest.
So
yeah.
what are some of those promoting balanced eating tips or initiatives that you guys have at Boys Town?
So, like I said, we're very family style, and so you're going to see that married couple teaching the kids how to cook, and so they're and it's also independent living that we're teaching them. So they're creating meals. But our menu does come from a licensed nutritionist, and so we're making sure that our kids have balanced meals, balanced snacks. We're making sure that we provide fresh fruit as snacks for them to eat. But a lot of our kids do come to us with issues with eating. Sometimes if they're been in situations where food was scarce, they may either hoard or eat a lot at one time. And so those tips, we do teach our kids, table etiquette to what's appropriate as far as a balanced meal, your vegetables, your fruit. We definitely want to make sure our kids understand that, no food is really a bad food, but having a balanced diet is important. And that's where we get from our nutritionists mostly.
So this is so interesting. I'm so serious. So is there an age where they kind of like matriculate through and out of your program? How long
Yes.
are they allowed to stay at Boys Town?
They can be as young as 12 coming into our program, and they can stay at the age of 17. We do admissions, but they can stay through past their 18th birthday. when they're in
Okay,
our
so
program.
basically at 18 they're no longer able to.
Yes.
And so you find that you have youth that come back to try to like maybe volunteer, anything of that nature, or look for work.
Absolutely.
Does that happen?
Yeah, we actually, I think right now we have 2 or 3 staff who used to be Boys Town kids.
Because I think that speaks to the effectiveness of what you're doing. When somebody comes through a program and then they want to come back and work for said program, I think that's a part of the evaluation process.
Right.
So kudos to you and the people over at Boys Town, because I don't know anybody that wants to come back and work for an environment that didn't treat them well.
Right.
Right. So I think that speaks to that.
And
So-
not only that, they have the lived experience. So they
Yes.
tend to be our most effective staff.
I think we discount lived experiences so much because we always looking for quantitative stuff. But qualitative data points are extremely important in terms of lived experience. I think it informs the way we handle things. If you've ever been impacted by drugs, when you hear conversations about drugs, you lean in a little bit differently,
Right.
because you have a lens that maybe somebody in the room doesn't have. I participated in Al-Anon as a kid, right? I know the Serenity Prayer by heart because all of the meetings we talked about the Serenity Prayer, and now the Serenity Prayer is a part of my life, not because anybody is dealing with any struggle, but because it's a really good prayer to have about anything, right? Because it's asking God to, like, you have to understand the things you can and can't change.
Yep.
What are you going to do? You know, how you going to move forward, right? So can you explain how nutrition impacts young girls' confidence? So we're talking about young girls, but boys too. Young boys and girls' confidence and emotional well-being.
It's important because, you have to have a balanced meal. You have to have, great nutrition. Even it impacts so much. It's not just physical health. It's our emotional health. It's how we feel about ourselves, our well-being. And so it's a holistic approach. You think you're teaching about one thing, but you're teaching about life.
Absolutely, because come on, now think about it. When you look good, don't you feel good?
Yes, absolutely.
Come on, you know how you get up and you just like, I'm not feeling it today. I'm just gonna put. But
Right.
when you know you done put it on, you feel good, don't you?
Right,
And
exactly.
I think that's a part of the conversation as well too. It's just about making certain that you get up and you have this routine to get yourself ready for the day. So that I feel like your attitude changes when you feel good.
Right.
The way you respond to people changes when you feel good, right? Yeah. And how important is sleep
Right.
in that formula?
Absolutely.
Because as adults, we think we can run off 2,
And
3,
we
4
can't.
hours. We cannot.
And we feel the difference.
We snap it, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Why are you snapping?" Girl,
I didn't get no sleep last night. Yeah, same with our children. Absolutely. And then it also goes to access and choice, right?
Yeah.
Going grocery shopping with your kids, pointing out different things so that they know what's nutritious, what's balanced, not eating processed food all the time, not eating fast food all the time.
Not eating
You're
crawfish
teaching
all
that.
the time. Because
I wish
like,
I could eat it. I have an allergy
Oh,
now.
girl,
I developed it as an adult.
I would be so
It's a
mad with
miserable life.
the allergy guys. Because what?
It's
Just
a
the
miserable
smell
life.
of it, I think it caused me. I can listen. I have a problem. I know
I
do.
did. I guess I got cured overnight when I ended up
My
in the
name is
emergency room.
Ashante, and I'm addicted to
You're
crawfish.
addicted to crawfish.
Like,
I heard that it has a lot of protein and not that many calories.
Look,
You're doing all right.
Where you think,
Yeah.
Can I put that on the dietary guideline?
Yes.
So talk to me, Rashawn, about what you have going on, because there's always, I attended one of your events the last time you invited me, and it was beautiful.
Yes.
Just to see so many people talking about the impact of Boys Town, to acknowledge you for the work that you're doing. Do you have anything that's coming up that you want us to start to talk about here, inform people what's going on, what's happening in the world of Boys Town?
I mean, there's so much going on. We are in the middle of transitioning with a new team that's going to help us with our marketing and development, and so we're really just planning right now. But I hope to come back and share really soon with some events that's coming up. And there's always, Give NOLA Day that's coming up. Please remember us on May 6th.
May
as
6th
well.
is Give NOLA Day.
Yes.
And besides Give NOLA Day, is there a way or platform where people can access to donate to the things you're doing? Because this vehicle doesn't move with efficiency without funding.
Absolutely.
So is there a way that everyday folk, if they like the work you're doing, they want to donate to you, where can they go?
www.boystown.org/Louisiana.
And what year are you in as executive director there?
21. I was a baby when I started.
You've been there for
21 years.
That's why it's a well-oiled machine, baby. Well, congratulations. Oh my God, 21 years. But don't it feel good to have longevity in places? I think that also speaks to you loving what you do. And I think being a parent helps you be effective in your role to
Absolutely.
govern over children. And not saying folk who don't have kids don't have that lens, but I think when you have children, you know what you will want for yours and how you will want to respond to yours in crises when they make a mistake. And I think that help guides the humanitarian part of us when we're talking to other people's children, when we are governing other folks' kids, because I don't want anybody speaking to my baby in the way that devalues his humanness, right? And so what do you think about that? Do you think being a mother helps you be more effective as an executive director in a realm where kids are your focus?
I believe so, because of course when I started at Boys Town
You
21 years ago, I was not a mother.
Yes.
And then, I had my babies, and you're right. And I find myself telling it to my staff, like, I want our Boys Town kids to be treated like my kids.
Yes.
I don't play about my kids,
Yes.
so I don't play about Boys Town kids. Same difference.
because they deserve it, right? I
Yes.
think they deserve, I don't know. I think that's why my heart beats differently for children, because they don't get to pick their circumstance. They don't get to choose where they live and how they're living. They're just trying to thrive in an environment that's already carved out for them. And when you find people who are like hyper independent, hyper, wanting to make certain that's because they've lived through some
had
sort
to.
of trauma,
Yeah, they had
and they
to.
want to just make certain that it works for them, right? But listen, shout out to you and for what you do, and when and if there's ever anything that you want to get out to the public, you could always do so right here on WBOK. But we're talking to Rashawn Carrier, Executive Director of Boys Town, Louisiana. Any parting words for our listening audience?
No, just also just talk, as we've been talking about Women's History Month, working with girls. Like I said, I feel like a lot of times our girls are neglected. Don't forget about them. They need the help and support just as anyone else. And our girls are our future, because our girls are going to be the ones to produce the next generation.
Come on now, girl power. Look, fellas, don't be mad. Nara, don't get upset. I mean, there's going to be a time to celebrate the young men in this. But we're talking about this Women's History Month, baby. We're going to put some respect on the women.
Absolutely.
But thank you, Rashawn Carrier, Executive Director of Boys Town, Louisiana, that also services girls. We appreciate all the work you do on behalf of children. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Look, y'all stay tuned. We have more. Up next, we're going to talk to Eric Doc Jones, everything about the superintendent race right here, WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
This is your news update for WBOK 1230 AM from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
Much warmer today and breezy. Gusts could get up to 25 miles per hour. It's also a little muggy as well. Highs rise to the upper 70s to low 80s. There are chances for scattered showers throughout the day. None expected to be severe. Maybe a couple of rumbles of thunder on the North Shore this evening. Much cooler tonight with lows in the mid-40s to low 50s. Highs in the mid-60s for Thursday. From the WDSU First Warning Weather Center, I'm Raven Richard.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Saline from Vicks.
Sinex Saline Nasal Spray.
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Saline instantly clears everyday congestion associated with colds and year-round allergies with a gentle, ultra-fine mist that's no mess and easy to control.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it.
Enjoy life's important moments without congestion. Try Sinex Saline from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation is the nonprofit organization that owns the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival presented by Shell. With the funds generated from Jazz Fest, the foundation invests in Louisiana companies through economic development, cultural enrichment, and free educational programs. To learn more about what the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation does, please visit www.jazzandheritage.org.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 AM.
Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. My super producer, Nyron Sanders, is also in the building, making me look good, as he always does. If you're just joining us, we were in conversation with Rashawn Carrier, Executive Director of Boys Town, Louisiana, talking about the important role of nutrition and self-care in building confidence and healthy body imagery in our girls and our youth. And so we want to thank her for joining us. And listen, if you want to ever donate to Boys Town, you can do so at their website. I believe they also have a lot of social media as well. So go to Boys Town, Louisiana's social media and see all of the wonderful things that are happening over there. So shout out to Miss Carrier over at Boys Town. I want to do a quick pivot. I want to make certain that we know about some things that are happening. As you know, Jesse Hoffman was executed at Angola. It was 617 inside Camp F at the Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola, where no one had been executed since 2010. There were laminated signs on the walls that caution nitrogen hypoxia system is active and pressurized. A pair of meters on the wall in the viewing room put the air at a healthy 20.7% oxygen, though it was quiet and heavy as a pair of curtains rose on Louisiana's first ever execution using nitrogen gas. Gina Swanson was one of two media personnel that were there, so she actually witnessed the execution. It says Jesse Hoffman appeared through the picture window. He was already strapped onto the execution table and draped in a plush gray blanket. A blue industrial gray respirator covered his face, leaving little of Hoffman to see as he lay in an incline facing the window, arms spread on the cruciform table. Only a portion of his neck and his hands were visible, thumbs touching forefingers in a sacred Buddhist pose as Angola Warden Dara Vanoy reached for a microphone. I can tell you that the governor of this state was also present, as was the attorney general. She was also present. The question was asked, would you like to make a last statement? Hoffman, 46, tossed his head to the side and seemed to say nothing. He'd also declined a last meal, a prison official said. Vanoy adjusted a valve on the mask covering Hoffman's face. The state will now carry out the execution of condemned inmate Jesse Hoffman. There will be no signal for when the ultra-high-grade nitrogen called for in Louisiana's new execution protocol will begin to enter the mask and kill Hoffman. Officials said in a briefing later that it happened at 6:21 p.m. and that the gas ran for 19 minutes. Tubing led from the wall under the blanket at Hoffman's right hand at 6:22 p.m. His breathing became uneven. His chest rose and he made a jerking motion. A minute later, Hoffman's body shook and his fingers twitched. He appeared to pull at the arms of the table, which is bolted into the ceramic tile floor of the center block chamber. Hoffman's hands began to clench. His head stayed turned to his right. His breathing slowed. Birds could be heard chirping under cloudless skies near dusk from the witness room, which included only state officials and news reporters divided by a wall. Hoffman was 18 when he was alleged to have kidnapped, raped, and shot 28-year-old Mary Molly Elliott, execution style in a remote area of St. Tammany Parish in November 1996. A duck hunter found her naked and dead on Thanksgiving morning. Her husband, then Andy Elliott, declined to attend Hoffman's execution, and no other family member chose to witness it. As a matter of fact, they had family members asking that he not be executed. Louisiana Department of Public Safety and Correction Secretary Gary Westcott denied Hoffman's family and lawyers a place among the witnesses. I'll say that again. Louisiana Department of Public Safety and Correction Secretary Gary Westcott denied Hoffman's family and lawyers a place among the witnesses. An oxygen monitor rested nearby on a sill. Hoffman's head remained tilted toward the room with the nitrogen tanks. At 6:26, Hoffman's head moved inside the mask. Less than a minute later, a few seconds before 6:27, he jerked slightly. It would be the last significant movement Hoffman would make in a life he'd mostly spent on death row. He was incarcerated because he was alleged to have committed a murder at 18 years old. He was incarcerated for 30 years before they executed him. To his left, Vanoy stood in a charcoal suit and black loafers beside an anonymous prison official. Minutes passed. Hoffman's breathing slowed, then became, oh, I can't. I've had enough. I've had enough. It happened. It happened. It's over. Vanoy announced that the execution was complete, placing the time of death at 6:50 p.m. Hoffman's face had been made visible for the first time. The mask used to kill him now removed. His head was tilted back, teeth exposed in a grimace as the curtain slowly descended once more. So his spiritual advisor, clergy, whomever, they were not allowed in the room, nor was his family allowed in the room. But there were media personnel and governmental officials were allowed there. The husband of the victim declined to be present, but I read that a sister, some family members of the victim, pleaded with governmental officials not to execute Jesse Hoffman. But as of yesterday at 6:50 p.m., Jesse Hoffman has been executed by the state of Louisiana by nitrogen hypoxia. So that is the update there. I won't even put my personal opinions on what I feel about the death penalty, but it happened, and here we are. Here we are. There's a case that I'm not certain that you guys know about, so I want to talk to you about it. There are some 19-year-old twins out of Lawrenceville, Quadir and Nasir Lewis. They were found on Georgia's Bell Mountain with fatal gunshot wounds after missing their flight to Boston. Investigators quickly called the deaths a murder-suicide, though there hasn't been an official ruling. In addition, forensic tests are still pending. The family also spoke out, stating that they believe there was definitely foul play, as they didn't know the twins to be homicidal or suicidal. Since the bodies were discovered, a volunteer fighter has been arrested in connection to the case. According to Fox 5, Scott Curlin, 42, was arrested and charged with misdemeanor obstruction after being accused of taking images of the death scene and publicly sharing them. Curlin has since bonded out and has been fired. Here is where this gets muddy. These kids were twins. The family is saying they've never been violent or physical toward each other. 19-year-old twins, they loved each other. Bodies were found in mountains that they've never visited. The family said they've never been there. There's no reason for them to be there. And they found these two boys shot to death. And then they come up with this scenario that one obviously had to shoot one and kill himself prior to even doing any thorough investigation. But, you know, the voyeurism nature of savagery, they love to look at Black Death and pass it around and get their kicks off of it. You know, it's sort of like watching somebody die by nitrogen hypoxia just for the kicks and giggles of it, right? But the family is disputing this. They're saying that Quadir and Nasir would never kill each other, shoot each other, harm each other, or kill themselves. They've never been homicidal or suicidal. 19 years old. I think this case needs to be thoroughly looked into. I think the investigators need to be investigated. And then as a firefighter, the fact that you can take pictures of two dead children and pass it around as if it's some stuff to watch out of a horror movie or something for kicks and giggles. It tells you, it speaks to who you are. It speaks to the tone and tenor of certain demographics of people who think that death is something to be passed around and talked about. I hate it. I hate when people on social media share the dead bodies of children, young men, after they've been gunned down, murdered, ran over, whatever the method of death was. I hate it. We're so desensitized to the suffering of other people that we think passing around people's dead bodies is some form of entertainment. It's sickening, really. But I'm hoping that the authorities in Lawrenceville, I'm hoping the authorities connected to this case, somebody with a heart, somebody with some form of humanity looks into this, because it's not enough to just go by what you think happened, because you don't want to really do the work of finding out what took place. They were ready to board a flight, and they ended up in a remote part of a place they had never been, in mountains they've never visited. That doesn't make sense. And when something doesn't make sense, somebody lying. So our thoughts and prayers are with the family of those twin boys. just as our thoughts and prayers are with the Elliott family, if they had some sort of closure on the murder of their loved one, and our thoughts and prayers are with the family of Jesse Hoffman, because they didn't commit a crime. They deserve our thoughts and prayers as well. But there's a write-up on Jesse Hoffman that I think many people should be interested in reading, because the question is, how do you go from never committing a crime in your life, never been in trouble, and at the age of 18, you just somehow snap and rape and murder a woman and spend the rest of your life in prison and die in an execution chamber? That is something to be investigated, to look into, to understand the psyche of people who just deviate from what they are known to have been. Every person I've seen post about this young man who went to school with him, because he's from New Orleans, the first thing on the post is, that's not the Jesse that I remember. So what would make a person just get up one day at 18 years old and just go out and rape and murder a woman? Spent 30 years in Angola on death row, and he was executed as of yesterday. So listen, y'all, we have to go to break around here. But when we come back, we're going to jump into conversation with Eric Doc Jones, talking about the superintendency right here for the New Orleans public school system. Stay with us, WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
WBOK 1230 AM New Orleans. Home of the Good Morning Show, 7 to 9 a.m. weekdays.
This news report is brought to you by New Schools for New Orleans.
I'm Alexandria Ikamoni with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Fredericksburg, Texas Fire and EMS is providing an update on the Crab Apple wildfire that's been affecting Black people in the community as well as other races. It's announced the fire is now about 90% contained. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, who is Black, says he's confident in Chuck Schumer despite the backlash over Schumer's support for a GOP spending bill. A Dominican Republic judge is ruling in favor of an American linked to the disappearance of a University of Pittsburgh student of color. Sudiska Kanaki has been missing for nearly 2 weeks after she was last seen near her hotel. Frontier Airlines is flying checked bags for free after Southwest announced the end of its more than 50-year-old policy for free bags. Black passengers and others will need to book a nonstop flight from now through August 18th. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Attention New Orleans educators. Are you ready to transform literacy education in your school? The 2025 Literacy Leader Cohort is a 2-year program designed to empower middle and high school leaders with cutting-edge science of reading training, coaching support, expert-led workshops, and earn a $3,000 stipend. Apply by March 21st to lead the way in reshaping literacy for our city students. Don't miss this chance to grow and make a lasting impact. Visit newschoolsneworleans.org to apply and learn more.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 AM.
Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. Happy Wednesday, y'all. Happy Women's History Month. I'm your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. And if you're just joining us, we're getting ready to jump into conversation with Eric Doc Jones, germane to the superintendent race right here in New Orleans. And if you want to join the conversation, the number is 504-582-9422. Good morning, Doc. How are you?
Good morning, Dr. Wyatt. It's good to be here. I'm excited about being here.
So listen, what's on your plate this morning? You talking about the superintendent race?
Absolutely. We're talking about the process. I want the public to understand the process, the superintendent search process, because I think the public is not really understanding that process, and we realize that process keeps changing to fit these outside influences. So I want to talk a little bit about how the public, how the community have to pay attention to what's going on, because at one point they started this process with very limited amount of criteria, and as you look at people entering to this pool of selection, superintendent selection, they adding on now. So they're looking and bidding out these excellent local candidates that fit all of the criteria that was listed, and now they're bidding it based on these application process so they can narrow it down to who they want. And so the public need to understand the process and what engagement, community engagement, and invested stakeholders' interest in the next superintendent.
Well, let's be fully transparent here. I already announced here on WBOK that myself, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt, I put in an application to serve as the next superintendent of New Orleans Public School System. So let's just be fully transparent there. And so when we talk about this process, when the criteria went up to look for their next superintendent, the criteria, actually, one of the first things says you needed to have a bachelor's or a master's degree.
Right.
That was number one on the list. I hold a terminal degree, right? That was first. When the criteria for submission went up, they asked for a cover letter, your curriculum vitae, your CV, 5 references, and a sample of a strategic plan. That's it.
Yeah.
I submitted that.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until after I submitted it, which in response I got received, thank you. That's what it said. The next day I get an email asking for an attestation form about the EDL3 or the superintendent test. There's a test that you have to take, right? I could take a test right now today. I could take it tomorrow. It's a test, right? But I think it's important for people to realize that I'm an anomaly because, as you know, as everybody knows, I've been blacklisted for 7 years here.
Yeah.
In order for your license to renew itself or to remain updated so that you can add on to your certificate, my doctorate degree is not even on my certificate because to add it, I have to be actively working in the K-12 space, right? Or my license has to be put in something called non-practicing, right? I can't even do that without having a job. So what we're saying here is that there things that have happened to purposely try to box me out of the process. But here is the thing. What the people want is what the people should get. And all we're asking for is the process to be equitable.
So you left out 2 other things. In that superintendent search, they talk about a local.
Yes.
They talk about experience.
Yes.
And so when we talk about those 2 things, as you mentioned,
I'm native. Let's be clear. I'm native.
Absolutely.
To the community.
All of that, you meet all the criteria. So, and they also talked about transparency.
Yes.
And they talked about integrity, and they talked about equity. So when we talk about those 3 things, transparency, integrity, and equity, we talk about a local, we talk about experience. You have all of that.
Yes.
So, but here's what we have to talk about in terms of preventing them for adding on. I'm talking about this board, this local board, who's influenced by external stakeholders who have no invested interest in this, who have no input, do not have any children that attend any of these schools, but they have the last say, and that's what the community has. We have to stop that. We have to call it out. We have to call out new school. For New Orleans new schools. We have to call out the Leslie Jacobs of the world. We have to call out the Caroline Roan of the world. We have to call out the Dana Petersons, the Patrick Dobar. We have to be courageous enough to do that. If the public has spoken, and we talked about transparency, we talked about equity, we talked about community engagement and involvement. You did one community engagement at McDonald 35. You submitted a survey, public interest survey, which, by the way, I haven't seen the report on that.
They've not put it out. I've not seen it.
And they should have put it out. So what is the integrity there? What is the equity in that? So when we talk about what the community is saying, and you say it's an ongoing process, so the community, parents, stakeholders that are invested who send their children to those schools should have the most input, not the elected board. The board is a voice, an advocate for the voices of the community. So the board members on that board who serve every one of these districts should be listening to the community, and the community has spoken.
Well, and I also want to say this as well, too, because we're having an honest conversation, and it has to be honest. Because when you talk about these external forces, right, we know who they are. We actually know them by name.
I named them.
Right? And so when you say these things, folk always act as if you can't back up what you say. I can. I know who they are. I know the things that they're saying. I know that they've been trying to push this particular person since last year when they decided that they were going to push out the former superintendent, right? And we have to be very honest about who's controlling the narrative for our children. even down to the idea that the next superintendent has to be able to stand up against those same external forces to make certain that the data that we're putting out about how well our schools are doing is in fact data that says our schools are doing well. We have to have a superintendent that makes certain that opportunities are there for all children, not just for the select schools that they want these opportunities for. And so for me, that's what's most important. I'm not asking to serve as the next superintendent for any other reason other than to make certain that the children of this city have a fighting, viable chance at a real education. Not this fallacy growth metric that they continue to push, grow, grow, grow. No, we want our children to be proficient when they leave us.
And we also have to be honest about what that agenda is and what that agenda does to the children that you just spoke about that we service. Is the agenda for these external stakeholders who are pushing a candidate, be it Sharon Clark, be it the interim superintendent that's there now? Is it equitable when you look at what you just mentioned, what the candidate and the next superintendent should have? One, if we're talking about a superintendent licensing, the last 3 superintendents did not have it, including John White when he was the state superintendent. Okay, so when we talk about what that means, why you keep adding on when we talk about transparency and integrity? And this is where I want the public to realize, if the community and the parents who of the children that goes to these schools, and it should not be just charter operators, it should not just be charter CEOs, like this involvement should be publicly open and honest and inclusive to everybody, right? And so when we talk about these barriers they're trying to create for one person, Dr. Wyatt, one person, because we need to be fair and honest with this. We need to be very honest and authentic with this conversation. If and I know you do, meet all those criteria, here's what I'm proposing to the elected officials that serve on that board. Here's what I'm proposing to all of these stakeholders who have embedded interests. If these 2 people are your best selection, then put them up against Dr. Wyatt. Put all 3 of them in that process. You talk about local. 2 are local, the others not. But if you even want that person to be there,
native.
Put native, lifelong, resident. But what I'm saying is put these people up in front.
So let's talk about the qualifications, Doc. Here's what it says. I pulled it up.
Great.
It says bachelor's and master's degree. These are the minimum qualifications. As at least 5 years of leadership experience in education, including experience in senior administrative or superintendent level roles. Experience as a leader in an urban district or a district of similar size, scope, and demographics with the focus on academic improvement and equity. Demonstrated leadership experience supported by measurable accomplishments that reflect growing levels of achievement for all students. Knowledge of district governance, finance, and strategic planning. Demonstrated ability to manage complex relationships within a large decentralized system. Demonstrated understanding of experience with and support for charter schools. Familiarity with the unique cultural, political, and historical aspects of New Orleans community and its school district. Applicants must meet minimum requirements in Bessie Bulletin 746 and LA Revised Statute 1754. Now, this is what they put in there to try to eliminate, because Bessie Bulletin 746 also says, because they don't think I know what it says, it says about the EDL 3, right? But if we talk about the superintendent search 2 years ago, there were people who made it to the semifinalist round who also did not have an EDL 3. So you historically have not used Bulletin 746 to exclude any applicant, right? So why are you starting now? Because this right here, this right here is added. They added this.
But even if you say that, that's one of the many criteria that they're asking. So you can't take.
But it also says, the bulletin also says, in order to have an EDL 3 license, right, which is the superintendency, in order for it to show up on your credential, Because let's be clear, it shows up on a person's credential who has never served in the capacity of a superintendent or an assistant superintendent. So the question will be, how did that happen?
Absolutely.
Because if you have the test taken, you get a form that says you're eligible for this license, but the license cannot appear on your license, on your credential, until you've gotten a job as a superintendent or an assistant superintendent.
That's correct.
See, because they think that I don't know what is happening here. When I became an EDL leader, right, I could not get my EDL license credential put on my license until I got a job working as an assistant principal or a principal. That is when it shows up. It doesn't show up before. So how is it that it's showing up for a person before they've even had a role as a superintendent or an assistant? These are the questions that we need to talk about.
It's just unbelievable, and it's horrific because we're talking about selecting the best person for this role of a dysfunctional, whether you like it or not, as a dysfunctional school district.
No, what we're talking about is equity, Doc.
And yes, I agree.
Lead with that and then say your because it's equity.
Yeah,
we're not asking for favors.
Absolutely, and that's not what we're asking. That's why I want the public to understand about the process. If we're talking about transparency, we're talking about equity, then the person that I'm sitting next to right now on this show has all of those things that meets those criteria, regardless of whether they're adding something or not, regardless of those other folk. We're talking about equity. We're talking about putting the people that qualifies for what you ask for and not eliminate them with little nuggets that you put in there to do a process of elimination.
And let's be clear.
Let's
also
fair.
be clear. And
that's
this is no
fair.
shot against Dr. Avis Williams because I have no smoke with Dr. Williams. I think she was given a raw deal. I've said that several times, right? But this experience as a leader in an urban district or a district similar size, scope, and demographics, Dr. Avis Williams doesn't come from a district that is similar in size and scope and demographics as New Orleans, right? It's 4 or 5 times bigger than where she came from. But you gave her an opportunity based on the criteria that you said you wanted. So if we're going to talk about criteria, it has to be so that if it's criteria, it has to be uniformed across the board for everybody.
And also consistent.
Yes,
it has to be consistent.
Let's go to the phone line.
It has
Ms.
to be
Alicia,
consistent.
good morning. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. You're on with Eric Doc Jones.
To you in the morning, doctor. You get my blood pressure. And I don't have blood pressure problems, but you get my blood pressure raised. I want to say this first. How fair is this process when you have school board members who I think none of them are qualified to make a selection, have already voiced their selections? How fair is that? How transparent is that? If they've already said in public who they are looking for. It's not fair. And you stay in there. We knew that they were going to be trying to do some things against you. We're behind you 100%. We will be there tomorrow at your meeting. And we're wishing for the best. We're praying for the best. And we're just not going to take what they did last time with John Brown's daughter. And the heat, we're going to bring the heat like we did last time when John Brown resigned, thinking we were going to back off from going after his daughter, who they had in mind to be the person. And she didn't go through all of this stuff. She didn't qualify for all this stuff. But the heat was on because we knew the fix was in, and we weren't going to tolerate it. And we're not going to change this year either. So good luck to you. Praying for you. See you tomorrow. Love you.
Oh, thank you.
I want to add that. I want to make sure people understand my purpose for on here. I ran for school board. I was the most qualified, most experienced person to run for that seat. And yet we elected a person that doesn't even have an inch of that qualification. And I promised, even running this campaign and running to serve on this board, that I will continue to put forth the effort and work for the best interests of Black and brown children and all children in this city. And so I'm not going to back down. We're talking about equity, we're talking about transparency, and we're talking about fairness. So if we're talking about local, if we're talking about putting the right person there, then I think at the end of the day, the board should not have that full amount of authority and that full amount of responsibility to select the next superintendent without ongoing participation and involvement with stakeholders, and I'm talking about stakeholders like parents and community organizations. Now, I'm going to continue to push that, and I'm going to push it with equity. Dr. Wyatt, Sharon Clark, Fatima, and anybody else who meet those criteria, who meet those qualifications, and not keep adding qualification when you're looking at an application, when you're looking at an application and you keep adding on. That's not consistency. Everybody who meets the criteria ought to have an opportunity. And I think we should not be behind closed doors selecting this process, being influenced by people, involvement of who controls what this outcome is. We're talking about equity here. And so this person and many other people, I'm not downing Dr. Clark, I'm not pushing for someone else. I'm talking about what the community has spoken and stated. And I've gone to multiple community meetings, forums, who talk about that process. And I went to one just recently with New Orleans United Front. And they are behind Dr. Wyatt. I'm not pushing that. I'm involved in that process. And so we should not be talking about outside influences, but yet we don't want to push and hold these school board members accountable for consistency and fairness and equity. You can't put on a dog and pony show. I'm not going to allow that. We're going to continue to push, and make sure that the qualified people, and that includes Dr. Wyatt, I want to be the first to say that, she meets those qualifications, she meets the criteria, and at the end of the day, it's not an advocacy, it's equity and fairness. So that's what we should be talking about.
Let's talk about it. Ms. White, good morning. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. You're on with Eric Doc Jones.
Good morning to both of you. I have a question about, since we've been talking about honest conversations, how do we inform parents about where their children are actually performing? Because we have the statistics about where the schools are performing, but the individual students, I don't think parents actually get an understanding of where they're performing. The LEAP scores go home every year. They tell them UNSAT, basic, approaching basic, mastery, and advanced. But I don't think that parents really look at that in terms of where their kids are performing. But several of the children, due to COVID and then reasons before that, are performing up to 5 years beneath the grade level that they're actually in. So how do we bring in transparency of letting parents know, hey, this is where your kids are, and this is where they should be. This is the grade that they're in, but this is where they're performing. So how can we work together to get where they need to be? Because right now, a lot of these parents are hearing the commercials. 18 years increase since Hurricane Katrina. It's almost 20 years since Hurricane Katrina. If we've only increased 18%, that is not a measure of success. So how do we get parents to get some fire under them and some urgency? Because the teachers are aware, the administrators are aware, the people who know the coded language are aware, but the parents are not completely aware about how these kids are performing. So how do we pull them in to pull behind, knowing that we need a native who is also a parent, who is also in the trenches of what's going on, so that they can know? Because I don't think they really understand that their kids are so far behind. They think everything is okay based on the grades that go home on the report card, which when they get the state test, it shows that they're not okay. How do we fix that?
Thank you, Ms. White. I hope you continue to listen for the answer.
You're absolutely correct. And this is why we need a local person who understands those processes. You didn't describe the person that you want. We just got to make sure parents are aware, keeping that information out, going into these entities where parents are, via their schools, if they allow us to get in there, but churches and community areas, places where our parents are shopping. We just got to get that public information out and making sure that that public narrative is there. You're right that we need a leader that's going to engage the community, who's going to impact and be an ambassador for what's happening with their children in those school buildings. You couldn't have said it better than that. And I want to say I appreciate your input and your comment to that. And once again, I want to continue to say we want to make sure that everyone understands the process. On tomorrow, there's going to be a board meeting in Algiers at the school board office.
2401 West Bend Parkway.
And so we are urging every parent, every community leader, every organization that has an interest and a stake in how our children should be performing, the service that our children should be getting, putting the best leaders in front of them, putting the best teachers in front of them so they can get a quality education to become productive citizens in this city so they can go on and do great things in this city, the state, or this country. So we're urging all of you to attend and make sure your voices are heard. You know, the president of the board said that she wants an ongoing process with community and parents and stakeholders through this entire process. So your voices should not be silent. They should not be muted. So I'm encouraging this process to be fair and equitable. That's why I keep saying that. And that we got to make sure that we have people that qualify and not put barriers that it prevents that person from making the first round, the second round, or the last round. And I think that's not fair. And we're not talking about fairness if we're creating those barriers. Every time you adding, you had it out. And how can you change a process when it went out the first time, and now you change it and adding on? That's just not equity, not transparency for me. And I'm going to continue to push that regardless of what anybody says.
Reverend Calhoun, good morning. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. You're on with Eric Doc Jones.
Good morning to all.
Good morning.
So the process is not set, is it? In other words, I can change it whenever I get ready? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, you can't change it. You're hearing it, but you cannot change. Once you send it out there, you can't continue to add and add and add. People who write criteria references, Reverend Calhoun, they write it with loopholes that you can add. So you have to read through the fine print.
Let me just ask that. So if I change the process, how do I hold the people that control the process accountable for changing the process? That's the same thing I'm having. As y'all know, I'm having a problem with the closure of the deauthorization. I don't want to use closure. The deauthorization process.
You continue to challenge that board member that represent that area. You continue to challenge those board members. And let me tell you this. And so also, the 7 board members that's on this board, then they have the ability to change the process. Is that what we're saying? I know you're saying they shouldn't do it. I'm saying they
should. But
shouldn't.
It seems like to me this is what's really happening.
Yeah, I agree.
They're determining what the process. So how do you challenge these 7 board members? Because I do think there's a problem there. I think we have one of the best boards money can buy. But I'm just trying to find out if they then can change the rules as to when they see fit, because that's what I see this board constantly doing. They constantly changing the rules to make it fit whatever thing they wanted to fit, whatever outcome they wanted to have. So how do we, I know we coming in and we're going to say what we want, and they claim that they open up this process for us to do that, but when we come together, how you hold them accountable, Eric? I guess that's what my real question is. Because they're changing it to what they want it to be, so they can get whoever they want. Again, this is a control factor.
Yeah, Reverend Calhoun, that's what frustrates me, to be honest. Like, this is why I ran for school board. They have transparency on that board, and there's a strong voice on that board. Unfortunately, I wasn't successful in that. But again, we're gonna continue to advocate. I think the critical thing is, when you don't have the resources to legally fight this body that adds on and adds on. I mean, you're right. It's a challenge. And then when you read the fine print, they write this so well, where they got these little prints that you can't see, but it's worded there. I just think we got to continue to make our verses heard. We got to continue to put pressure on them. We got to continue to make sure our leaders in the community that represents us, our local governance, our elected officials.
Is there a legal challenge that can be made against these type of things?
I think there are. I think if something go wrong, I think there should be a legal action taken to make sure that this process is open and fair. But my point is just to continue to push for equity and fairness, because that's what they keep saying. They use those words so loosely. We're going to be transparent. We're going to provide equity. We're going to involve community. One survey don't involve the community. One town hall meeting as like superintendent don't involve community. That's short-lived. This has to be ongoing, constantly, consistently in terms of the process. And that's what we got to keep the public aware of the process.
We're really looking at what's happening. And again, as it was said, it's been 20 years.
Yeah.
And nobody can show me where this school system is in better shape now than it was 20 years ago.
And that's
matter of fact, I'm of the opinion that it was in better shape 20 years ago than it is
absolutely was.
now.
It absolutely was.
And
Thank you, Reverend Calhoun.
I think that's what Dr. Boyd, Senator Dr.
You
Boyd.
might be speaking a word.
Superintendent
Thank you, Reverend
Boyd
Calhoun.
was pushing that, if you remember. He was pushing that.
Yeah.
Like, show us the data, the empirical data, show us show us the growth. And they ended up and they said, oh, it's not an experiment. It's no longer an experiment. We're here to stay.
I think
so he
it's
was pushing
also,
that.
Eric, and I don't know where your feeling is. We got a minute left, but I think it's also important to realize that we have a federal government that is bent on closing the United States Department of Education, and we have a state superintendent who is supportive of closing the United States Department of Education. If that does happen, that means everything goes to the state in terms of what we want for our children. And you have a state superintendent that believes in the Heritage Foundation, that believes in PragerU. So what we need is a superintendent that's willing to go toe-to-toe with a state superintendent to protect the educational opportunities for the children of this city. And I would say that if all superintendents across the state stood up to the state superintendent, we would have better outcomes for our children.
I agree.
We cannot all bend to that will, because if we do, we're going to be teaching our children that enslaved people were indentured servants who punched in at 8 and punched out at 5, as if they chose slavery as an occupation.
I chose to be beaten.
We're gonna that's what we're gonna teach our children in terms of social studies curriculum in this city, and I'm not going to have that. And maybe that's the reason why it's a problem for me to be a superintendent, right? But I believe if every superintendent around this state stood together in defense of what's supposed to be happening in classrooms, we can change what's happening in Baton Rouge in terms of education. So whether or not we have a state governmental agency, that's all I'm saying.
Well, I'll close with this. I admire your courage, your courageousness, your effort, your commitment. A person who's been blacklisted and blackballed for 7+ years, continue to advocate, continue to stay strong as a strong black woman. Celebrate you for the women of the month, black women particularly. I continue to tell you to continue to fight. The community is going to fight with you. I just want to say thank you for the efforts that you've put out. And I'm going to tell every community, this is a person that qualifies, that's dedicated, that's committed. Give her I'm talking to board members, give her the opportunity. Every board member on that board, give her the opportunity, as you give anybody else the opportunity, to sit in front, to be interviewed by y'all, to be heard by y'all, to define, not defend, to define the character of this person, to make sure that it's equitable, transparent, and that you don't get any feedback or setback or even attack on your character of your process. Just give that person an opportunity like you give anybody else.
I appreciate
Thank you again.
Look, we got to take a break, but up next we're going to talk to Dr. Avegno from the NOHD. Y'all stay with us. Thank you, Dr. Eric Jones. I appreciate you for being here. Thank you to all the listeners and all the callers. Stay with us right here at WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
Hey, this is Steve Poston. Be sure to listen to WBOK 1230 AM every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. and Sunday evening at 5 p.m., bringing you the best Southern Soul barroom music with the Southern Soul Weekend Party Mix, hosted by me, of course. I'll be playing your favorite Southern Soul music by artists from all over the South, right here on WBOK 1230 AM or online at WBOK1230.com. The station you listen to longer. Listen to longer. Listen to longer.
Good morning and happy Wednesday. I'm Morgan Lentis with WDSU News, and here's a look at today's headlines. Louisiana has executed its first death row inmate in more than a decade. Last night, Jesse Hoffman was put to death using nitrogen gas. Argina Swanson was one of only 2 media members allowed to watch the execution. She described it as clinical and procedural. Hoffman was convicted of raping and killing Mary Molly Elliott in 1996 in St. Tammany Parish. Molly's husband said Tuesday night, quote, "This is bittersweet news for myself and our families," adding the execution brings renewed grief. Then the search is on for a man who court officials say cut off his ankle monitor and escaped. A representative with ASAP Monitoring says Calvin Beasley went on the run yesterday around 11 a.m. He is considered dangerous. Past charges include battery, aggravated assault, and possession of a firearm by a felon. The NOPD says if you see him, call 911. Finally, 3 New Orleans families are waking up without a home after a large fire in the 9th Ward. This happened yesterday afternoon on Charbonnet Street. The NOFD says at least 5 residents were displaced from their homes. Right now, the cause of that fire is under investigation. And that is a look at today's headlines. I'm Morgan Lentis with WDSU News. Have a great hump day.
Connect with NOLA Public Schools. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and X for the latest updates. Sign up for District Digest, our official newsletter where we share district achievements, celebrate student successes, and keep you informed about our vision of providing a high-quality education. And don't miss our school board meetings. Watch in person or live stream on YouTube. Stay informed. Stay engaged. Visit NOLAPublicSchools.com today. Again, that's NOLAPublicSchools.com.
Visit DePaul's new Algiers Health Center at 2801 General de Gaulle Drive to receive primary and preventive care for both adults and children. Services also include behavioral health, imaging, and on-site pharmacy, vision, Medicaid enrollment assistance, and more. For appointments, visit DePaulCommunityHealthCenters.org or call 504-207-3060.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 AM.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. Happy Wednesday, y'all. Happy Women's History Month. If you're just joining us, we were in conversation with Eric Doc Jones talking about the superintendency race here in the city of New Orleans. But right now, we're getting ready to jump into conversation with Dr. Avegno from the New Orleans Health Department. We're going to talk about all things state of all of these programs that folk are out here trying to cut. Good morning, Doc. Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Good morning. Thanks
How
for
you
having
feeling
me.
this morning?
You know, the sun is shining. We're in New Orleans,
Yeah,
so I can't complain.
connects for a better place to be now.
That's right.
Now,
That's
listen,
right.
so we do know that with things that are happening on a national level in terms of DOGE and the cuts to certain, he calls them entitlements, but certain programs, what is the threat to Medicaid, particularly around maternal and infant health?
Well, you know, I'm not going to lie. The threats are real.
Yeah.
The Congress has been tasked with finding almost $900 billion to cut. And although they're not saying cut this program or that program, it's very clear that the main places they would look would be Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And generally, Medicaid is the first one on the chopping block because, unfortunately, it's seen as something more expendable than the other two. And I would argue it's exactly the opposite. Medicaid affects everyone in this country, whether you have it or not. It covers about 2/3 of births in Louisiana, covers about half of our children, both in Louisiana and nationally, and it covers 3/4 of people in nursing homes in Louisiana, almost half of our folks with disabilities. So everybody that's listening right now knows somebody that would be affected by these cuts, and it just doesn't make any sense what they're trying to do.
I've always had an issue with when cuts have to be made, they typically start with healthcare and education.
Exactly.
And that's always been a concern of mine. I don't even understand how anybody could first go to a structure that is put in place to keep people alive, right? Some folk, their only form of insurance is Medicaid.
Yeah.
Their only form of insurance is Medicare. And to dismantle those programmings in the name of budget cuts or considering them entitlements is disingenuous to your role in terms of government. Government has to reign over a healthy populace of people. And so let's talk about Louisiana has some of the highest maternal and infant mortality rates in the nation. Can you explain how Medicaid can help address these challenges?
Well, the best thing we've done in the last 10 years in Louisiana, I think, for healthcare is that we expanded Medicaid. And so now we have hundreds of thousands more residents covered. As I said, we have 2/3 of our births. And, I just want to commend our hospitals. They have done a tremendous job over the last several years in making births healthier, right? Safer for our people. We're not there yet, but they've done a lot. What Medicaid does is it gives people continuous coverage. It gives them the ability to access that prenatal care, to get to their doctor, to get any complications seen quickly. It also gives them the opportunity after the baby is born to be able to go to their postnatal appointments to make sure they are healthy, baby's healthy, and that their whatever their underlying medical conditions are managed. So when they get pregnant again, it's not a high risk pregnancy. It really is a lifeline, and not just for patients. Obviously, that's the most important. But Medicaid pays billions of dollars to every facet of the healthcare system. So nurses and doctors and mental health counselors and nursing homes. So these are real jobs and real people like myself and my colleagues. All we want to do is care for patients. But if there's no money to care for them, I don't think anybody wants to go back to the days when the vast majority of people that we would see in the ER would be uninsured without any access, because that wasn't good for anybody.
And just talking about Medicaid and the maternal infant health, there's also a threat to senior citizens, right?
Yes.
Many seniors and people with disabilities rely on Medicaid for their health care needs. How does Medicaid ensure that these vulnerable populations, like those in nursing facilities, receive the home care, receive the actual care that they need?
Yeah, it's really staggering when you think about 3/4 of folks in nursing homes in Louisiana are there because Medicaid pays, for part or all of their beds. And at Rep. Carter's town hall last night, I had a gentleman come up to me and show me a picture of his dad, who is in a nursing home with dementia, who has Medicaid. And he says, what's going to happen to my dad if that Medicaid goes away? Who's going to help take care of him? And I think as a society, if we can't agree that caring for our most vulnerable, our elderly, our seniors who have done their time, put in the work, is the highest priority, then I think we're really going to be failing as a society.
I was watching one of the national coverages. They go all around the country, and they're interviewing folk who voted for this current administration. And they were asking them, based on these cuts that are particularly to Medicaid, because she's a woman that worked the fields, and she believes that the pesticides and things she was working with had an effect on her body, which ultimately affected the disability that her child has. And then she has a sister with Turner syndrome. So all three of them are dependent on the Medicaid system. And the guy asked her, without Medicaid, how much would your medication be? She said, I wouldn't be able to afford it.
That's right.
She said, my daughter and my sister would most assuredly pass away because what they need, I can't afford out of pocket. And so the guy was asking her if she regretted voting for him. And she literally said if she had it to do again, she wouldn't vote at all. This is what she said, because she couldn't vote for the opposition because she was against abortion. And so we're finding that a lot of single issue voters voted a certain way because of that single issue, not understanding that it had this dire impact on all of these other things that they're dependent on to just live day to day.
Right. Well, Medicaid is bipartisan.
Yeah,
you know,
should be.
we looked in
Yeah.
Louisiana, we looked parish by parish.
Yeah.
And while it's often painted as, oh, this is just a city thing, it's just urban residents of
Yes.
Medicaid.
And she was in a rural part
yeah,
of the
Orleans
community.
Parish is about middle of the pack with our percentage of people on Medicaid,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the rural areas, particularly when we talk about rural hospitals.
Yes.
Louisiana has about 51 rural hospitals. Because of Medicaid expansion, none of them have closed because that's a lifeline. So they're able to be there in those parishes that otherwise would have no medical care, and they're able to care for patients and be in economic engines. When we look at states that haven't expanded Medicaid, they've had a lot of rural hospitals close. You know, I work in an urban hospital here in the city. I can't imagine what would happen if our rural hospitals shut down, because how
You're
would
gonna be
people get to
inundated.
us?
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
It's going to bottleneck.
So
the
it's
system.
bipartisan, it's urban, it's rural, it's white,
So
it's
how do
black,
we have
it's-
something that's bipartisan, but we're now looking down the barrel of these deep cuts to something that both sides of the aisle seem to want for the American people?
Yeah, I think fundamentally, you know, there's a disconnect with some as to whether or not healthcare is a human right. I think most of us believe that it is. I think most other developed countries do. I think if you know, to paraphrase Dr. Martin Luther King, you know, who said the worst inequity is inequities in healthcare, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is a human right. But some, you know, would believe that cuts to Medicaid are okay because they'll support tax cuts for the wealthy. I think most people don't agree with that when you come down to it. But unfortunately, right now, that's the narrative that those in power, you know, are pushing.
And what about this measles outbreak and the importance of vaccinations?
Yeah, another, you know, just really concerning thing, particularly with the new Health and Human Services Secretary and brewing over the years, is just this misinformation and disinformation being spread about vaccinations. We have to be very clear. Vaccinations over the last 100 years, childhood vaccinations, seasonal vaccinations, have saved millions of lives. I'm not old enough, you're not old enough to remember measles outbreaks and polio outbreaks, but our seniors do. And they killed children. And so why would we want to go back to a place where our children were dying? Unfortunately, measles is so highly transmissible that you really have to have a community level of about 95% of people who have gotten their childhood shots to keep any outbreak at bay. And in this particular community in West Texas, that they were much lower than that. And so measles has spread very quickly. It is spread to New Mexico. It's looking like it's spreading to other states. We know that Louisiana is vulnerable because we're right next door. We have many places where our vaccination levels are low because a lot of people are, you know, got bad information. And so we really need to protect our community against that. That means making sure your children and you are up to date on all of your vaccinations.
Listen, we're in conversation with Dr. Avegno from the New Orleans Health Department. We actually have to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to ask you, like, where do we go from here with all of the policy changes that are happening, all of the deep cuts to Medicaid and Medicare? How do we keep our populace safe? Stay with us right here, WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
This is your news update for WBOK 1230 AM from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
Much warmer today and breezy. Gusts could get up to 25 miles per hour. It's also a little muggy as well. Highs rise to the upper 70s to low 80s. There are chances for scattered showers throughout the day. None expected to be severe. Maybe a couple of rumbles of thunder on the North Shore this evening. Much cooler tonight with lows in the mid-40s to low 50s. Highs in the mid-60s for Thursday. From the WDSU First Warning Weather Center, I'm Raven Richard.
Saints of God, it's time for us to tell you the truth. It's time for you to start your 21-day challenge. Don't take another day. Do it right now. Call 504-701-4711. That's the Whole Water Stove, Pastor David Impartan Sr., the host of Change Your Water, Change Your Mind. This is the water that's designed to change your body, the way you think, the way you act, and the way you look. Why don't you start your 21-day challenge today? For $35, you can start it right now. Call me so we can set up your appointment. 504-701-4711. That's 504-701-4711. Change your water, change your mind.
Hey everybody, it's Kimber White Dupree.
And it's Graylin Bryan Banks from the front porch. We're coming up next.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 AM.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. If you're just joining us, we're in conversation with Dr. Avegno from the New Orleans Health Department. But I also wanted to give some nuance around the prior conversation with Dr. Eric Jones. Some of you were asking where's the meeting. It's at 2401 West Bend Parkway tomorrow at 5 p.m. And that is germane to the superintendent vacancy. That is the superintendent selection appointment that is going on. The meeting is tomorrow, 2401 West Bend Parkway, 5 p.m. But Dr. Avegno, there are some questions in the chat, and one of them says, I've taken over 9 measles vaccines, yet my rubella, I guess you would understand this, my rubella
titer.
Yes, look at you. That's why you're a doc. Continues to report that I am not immune to rubella. Why and what does what do you recommend in the current state of the measles outbreak? So she wants to know why she's taking all of these vaccines, but the report continues to say she's non-immune to rubella.
That is really interesting, and I'm not an immunologist, but we do know that some people, for whatever reason, do not develop immunity to certain diseases. Rubella and measles are different. And right now, as long as your measles titers are okay, and again, hopefully you're talking to a doctor about this, your primary care, maybe they're sending you to a specialist. As long as your measles titers are okay, you're okay. Rubella, knock on wood, is not really an issue right now, and it's not as easily transmissible. So hopefully you'll be protected from that.
So I hope that answered the question that you had. Well, let me tell you something about the WBOK listening audience. They are very, they are critical thinkers.
Oh, I know. That's why I love coming here.
And they will make certain that
I love coming
they will
on this
make
show.
certain that they get their questions addressed.
Yes.
But prior to the break, I was saying, like, where do we go from here? Like, we have a government that seems to want to dismantle all of the programs that keep the more marginalized communities of us safe. Whether that's health-wise, whether that's education, whether that's like Section 8 or 10 of food stamps, whatever the program is that makes certain marginalized people can have some semblance of humanity in their food, in their housing, in their health care. Where do we go when all of these programs are being slashed? How do we protect us here when the national conversation is, let's slash it all?
I'll say, it's easy to feel powerless, and it is a lot coming down. And, my team, we are tired, but determined, but we do have a voice. Everybody should know that the city, whether it's the council or the administration, are talking to everyone. We're talking to our congressional delegation, federal agencies, anybody that will listen. We are telling them about the effect that these draconian policies would have. But what really is effective is when constituents make their voice heard. So if you or a family member are going to be affected, tell that story. And, Congressman Carter gets it. He had a really vigorous town hall last night. He really understands. So if he's your congressman as he is mine, make sure he knows, but reach out to our neighbors, right? Because our delegation has a lot of power, and they don't always necessarily represent what we think. So tell your story, call, write, text, whatever you have to do to our delegation. As Congressman Carter said last night, don't give them a pass, right? Let's not take it lying down. Let's not take it on the chin. Tell the real stories of how this is affecting people.
I absolutely agree. Good morning, T-Bone. You're on with Dr. Avegno from the New Orleans Health Department.
Good morning, ladies. How y'all doing? I'll make it real quick. I know y'all up against the clock. So I have a solution. It may be a little blunt in my speech, but the other day I told a story about a bully and a brick and how you have to deal with a bully. I told this story to G on his broadcast late. Anybody that's heard that story will understand what I say when I say this. If you don't know, ask G about it later on today or rewind the tape. Simple and plain. The best way to stand up to a bully is to stand up to him and come at him with something that he don't expect. Get that brick. DNC, stop laying down. Get that brick and deal with him. Other parties that want to get involved with this, whether it be Bernie Sanders or any of these other third political parties, get that brick and let's deal with this bully. Because if we don't deal with the bully, he's just going to keep taking our lunch. That's my bone to pick, my 2 cents, y'all.
Thank you, T-Bone. Appreciate you.
All right.
So, Dr. Avegno, before you go, I want, because we're talking about health care, right? Mm-hmm. And now there's this, Trump administration has ended the segregated facilities ban in federal contracts, right? And I'm worried that when something like this happened, we can go back to a time where there were separate facilities for health care, separate facilities for education, separate facilities in transportation, just different things, because the Civil Rights Act of 1964, as well as a plethora of state laws, still make segregated facilities illegal in all businesses. Is this the trajectory that you have to worry about in terms of your role in healthcare? Like, is that something? Yeah. And here is my other question, because it's so layered for me, and we have a few minutes, but I believe he can write whatever executive order he wants. I think regular everyday people have to stand up against this stuff, because and that's just how I feel. Leave it in education. You can close the Department of Education if you want. As an educator, my job is to educate children, right? And truth, right? And so I believe as a school leader, if I'm pushing back against the rhetoric, there's a teacher right now that is being penalized because she has a sign in her classroom that says all children are welcome here. Like, how could you not want that? Right. But that's his directive in terms of this attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yeah. All children are welcome here is somehow political. Yeah. So what happens when something starts out with the aim to hurt a specific group of people, but then by and large, it dismantles entire systems meant for all demographics of people? Because whether we want to admit it on air or not, the Black folk are not overwhelming welfare systems like they're trying to say, right? This is not just about Black people. No. So how do we get poor demographics of other people to realize that this is an attack on poverty? Yeah. This is an attack on marginalized communities of people. If we start with lifting a ban on segregated facilities and government contracts, this can go all the way back to dismantling the civil rights of people.
Well, I think when you look at what the cuts, if you cut Medicaid, that is going to hurt rural white individuals just as much, if not more, than urban folks of color. Yes. And, I trained at Charity Hospital. It was not,
you know what you're doing, baby.
It was not that, and I love Charity, but it was not that long ago that Charity had segregated blood banks. That was the 60s. We're talking about the 60s.
And this is what I'm asking you to talk about. Like, this is the trajectory we can be on.
If you go to Charity now, you can see the faint outline of a sign that used to have the white side and what they called the colored side, right? I'm using that very pejorative term.
Yes.
It wasn't that long. And healthcare has made strides. I don't think we quite there yet, but there's still marked health inequities when we talk about folks of color. I will say one thing that is different, I think, than even when I trained in the late 90s and early 2000s is that we talk about that now. We didn't talk about it before. We didn't acknowledge it when we're training doctors, training medical students practice. There's been a lot of work done in the last 20 or 30 years to bring that to the forefront so that no doctor or nurse should be able to say, oh, I didn't know it was bad to have, segregated blood banks or to treat people differently. And I think that is where the power lies, because I know my colleagues will not stand for separating or treating someone differently.
So that's
when
what
it
I'm
comes to
asking for.
healthcare.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Like, we have to make individual people have to make a stand against this, because really and truly the power is in the people when we're a collective. Right. And I heard you say that healthcare, like, folk need to view healthcare as a human right. But humanity should be a human right. Like, you look at people and you decide to help people, because in your profession, the oath is to first do no harm. I can't see you upholding a policy that you know is harmful for people based on the oath that you took. I don't think you ought to be in healthcare spaces or any space where the humanity of people is tantamount to how you as a professional respond to this, I consider, asinine behavior by the government. Like, this is crazy to me. But it's going to take everyday people in positions like yours, like mine, like the legislator, to stand up and say, this cannot happen. Yeah. And so for me, I thank you for what you do. I thank you for being here, and you're always welcome here. And there's just so much more to talk about. So you got to promise you're going to come back.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I'm sorry that you didn't get the COT. You can't prepare the COT, but she didn't know I was the host of the Good Morning Show, y'all. But OT has officially announced his candidacy for the mayor of the city of New Orleans. So he will no longer be a host on the show. But you can see him out in the community. And ask him
him in city council chambers all the time.
Yeah, all of the things. But please come back, because there's so much more to talk about. But I want to thank Dr. Avegno from the New Orleans Health Department for joining us this morning. And I also want to thank Ms. Rashawn Carrier from Boys Town, and all of our callers and all of our listeners and all of y'all who participate in the chat, all of y'all who text my phone. Thank you for engaging with this platform each and every morning. But if you want to attend the school board meeting, it's going to be held tomorrow, 5 p.m., 2401 West Bend Parkway. And the New Orleans United Front meeting has moved from the 24th to the 31st. It's still happening at Cafe Istanbul. I am still the moderator. Darren Lombard is still the panelist. Y'all come and engage with the community, talk issues. Y'all stay tuned up next for the Front Porch. But as for the Good Morning Show, I'll see you tomorrow. This is WBOK 1230 a.m. what New Orleans is talking about all day long.